Hey everyone, I hope all of you are having a wonderful day, and today we are starting off with the dark ride. Or at least we're starting a dark ride, and I just get sidetracked building the facade, because of course I do. Anyways, before we actually get started, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more, and now let the chaos begin. Alright, starting off by building some figures that are going to be used in the storyline of the ride. Now, I didn't record the first one. Why? Because that was a test build. That's basically just a lady in white, or ghost of a lady in white, which is a trope that you see pretty much in every country. I think every country has one place that is supposed to be haunted by like a lady in white, whether that's a bride or just a lady in white. But there's always just a lady in white, so I started building that. I made it so that she's from like the 1700s, because why not? Because, well, easy thing there was I didn't have to give her a hat, because France was very well known for what happened to the nobility in the 1700s. So it adds a certain spooky factor, and I thought of like making the dress partly red, because, you know. But no, I just gave her a bloody stump. That's it. But yeah, that's a character that's going to be basically the main starting point of the story of the ride. But the ride is supposed to be set in like a haunted hotel. And like you're as a guest or as part of the story, like it's storming and you need to stay somewhere. And all of the other hotels are like fully booked and such. So you are out of necessity staying here. But of course you need hotel staff. Now, a haunted hotel is not going to get much in the way of income, so that's my way of only building one maid, although the maid is also important. But here's my biggest tip for when you want to build animatronics or figures for a ride. Set the ride in the 1800s or the 1700s, because you can hide a lot of stuff, like a lot of jank can be hidden underneath bustles and beignets. So yeah, that's why the ride is from that era. Or no, it's not a bride actually, but it's just a lady. But I also just had fun with that, because building female characters, or at least characters in dresses, is a lot easier than building a man in a suit. Because I also built like the hotel manager, and it was just a pain, because you can't use like the fabric pieces because they are too flowy for a suit. So I had to use all of the basic shape pieces, which of course end up looking very plasticky. And I am so glad I'm only using him in one scene, and I'm not going to light him up, because that's one of the tricks of a dark ride. Hide the jank by hiding it in darkness. But I had so much fun with this ride. So much fun that I didn't figure out what ride to actually use beforehand. Because I wanted to use, I think it's called the Omni Mover. Like, I'm just going to call it the Haunted Mansion, or if you are more cultured like me, the Phantom Manor ride system. Because I will go and say Phantom Manor is, you know, the superior version of all the Haunted Mansions. Barring the one in, I think, Tokyo, or is it Shanghai? I don't know, but they also have a very great one. But, well, it's not, is that the Haunted Mansion anymore? But I think they have a Haunted Mansion, and then they have the other ride, which I don't know, but I still like the Phantom Manor the most. And it's not because it's the only one of all the Haunted Mansions that I've ridden. It's not because it's the only one close to me. It's because I can't understand a lot of the things that are being said, because it's in French. When you don't speak a language, it becomes more mysterious and such, and very well suited for dark rides and such. So yeah, everybody just like start making your dark rides and use Blanco speech. Actually, this dark ride is not going to have any speech, because I think it kind of breaks the immersion to have either English speech in Planet Coaster, because it just there's some misconnection in my brain that then just starts when I hear actual normal English in this game. But also, the Planko speech is it's just too goofy. And this is a very sad ride. But anyway, I also needed to explain Why am I not using the Omnimover thing, which I don't know if it's called the Omnimover. We're just going to call it the Haunted Mansion ride system. Why am I not using that? I tried. I actually made this entire ride with that one and then realized because there's a section where the ride spins on itself, the Omnimover train is just going to clip in on itself, so that wouldn't work because, like, yeah, English speech would break the immersion, but seeing the train actually clip in to itself would break the immersion even further. And I thought, like, oh, I can set it so that, like, the trains, because the Omnimover, like, it's a train with multiple carts, I could set it so that, like, one train leaves at the station and then, like, 60 seconds later the next train leaves. You can't do that. Or at least if you can, I haven't figured out how, so we're using the trackless moving one, which does give a little bit more options when it comes to, like, making sure your cart faces or your guests face a certain direction, because you can use, like, the pitch of the cart, like you can make it so that it looks down, looks up, swings a little bit to the left and right. I'm probably not going to go too deep onto that because I'm a squirrel, my brain is not that advanced. I mean, when it comes to all of, like, the effects, because it's a dark ride, it's going to have a lot of effects. It's already broke my brain trying to make lightning, like a thunderstorm, because this is supposed to be like, oh, you're at this hotel, which is haunted, because of a thunderstorm. You need to seek shelter, and this is the only place that is able to house you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So it needed to have, like, a thunderstorm, and I figured out how to do it. It's just that the sound also is outside of the ride, so occasionally you will hear thunder outside, so it's just the way it is. I can't, like, Planet Coaster doesn't know soundproofing, even though I would love to. And I don't want to tie it to the ride itself because that would be a pain. I mean, I'm already, like, when it comes to all of the sounds that are going to be played in this ride, I'm going to make, like, it so that it's attached to the music of the ride and it's not like effects that are being triggered by the ride. So when this ride is entirely finished, I will have to ride this thing like 200 times, making sure that the soundtrack of the ride fits in with every effect that's happening. Just because, to me, for some reason, that's simpler than having it all attached to the two effects. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, when it comes to the effects, you will hear it outside of the rides. And that's one thing I want to avoid. With the thunder, I can't avoid that. But yeah, so there's different rooms and scenes that are already set up. So there's like the haunted hotel part that then after drops you into the catacombs because... Or is it catacombs? Catacombs? Catacombs. I don't know. Somebody will probably point that out. But of course, because it's like Mythos, the main street is set in France, we're going to go into the catacombs. Now I'm really questioning just catacombs, I don't know. But yeah, so of course the ride is going to drop you down into the catacombs, which also is a great thing because I don't have to build that much furniture then. Because building furniture in Planet Coaster 2 is like, it's easier because of the scaling too, but it's still a pain. So when it comes to like the station, which is like, it's not the main staircase because the staircase is its own scene, but it's like kind of that idea of like the Haunted Mansion ride. But there's not much furniture yet because that's the next video, because I was just like, no, we're not going to do that. I already am just like, no. We're going to do that in the next video because I don't have the brain power left to build that. And you can see how much can see, you can't see it right now, you can see it at the end of the video, how much I was like trying to run from this building the rest of the station, because at one point all I had to do was build a door and like put in like the curtains and such. I just refused to do that. Built 3 full facades for like the buildings surrounding the hotel. And then like only after that, after I had just exhausted every other option of what else I could build, that's when I started building a door, or at least the final doors that I needed for the station. Yeah, it was fun. Now, at least now the main street is a lot more developed, but it also meant that this video is delayed by like 1 or 2 weeks because I just didn't want to touch the station, because I was just dreading having to build furniture. And then when I finally decided, alright, furniture, that's just going to be the next video, I was so happy and I just kept building in the station. Yeah, the next video is just going to be me crying, building furniture, like building dressers and cabinets. Don't mention chairs, because that's just going to end me. But yeah, so building a lot of stuff for the station, because it's supposed to be like a hotel. And I really like that when it comes to the ride, in the station you actually see the ride again. Like you see this, there's the balcony where the cars go over again. So I had a lot of fun with that. I like it when from the station you can see the actual ride. Like it's not just like, oh yeah, you just sit down and you never see the station again. I really like that as well with coasters, where the coaster goes through the station and not as in going through the station because it, you know, people need to load and unload. No, that it just goes through the station as part of the ride. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. Also the fences, again, definitely inspired by the Haunted Mansion, because well, also just dark wood works really well with a haunted anything. I do think that I might have made the actual scene of the station maybe a bit too dark. Like, YouTube is not going to love this, because when it comes to YouTube, dark stuff, as in like actual darkness, not as in like spooky or something, but like dark stuff doesn't really do well, because when it comes to like the video, it's basically unwatchable because it's just dark. So don't know how that's going to go with this dark ride, because especially like the hotel bits of the ride, that's going to be very dark. I also couldn't make nice looking chandeliers because we don't have, like, we have a candle piece, but it's like fantasy candles and it's really obvious that it's fantasy candles and they just wouldn't work. So I had to like improvise. Also, somebody in the Discord actually named like what this is, like the wooden paneling. I have the memory of a goldfish though, so I don't know what it is anymore. I just know that it's pretty. And also I turned all of the wooden paneling right now is white. I turned it dark because, as I said, dark woods in a dark ride just works really well to just, like, if this was all just white, it wouldn't be as spooky as when it was just like dark woods. It's still reddish, but when it comes to the dark ride with, like, now it's all just in daylight. This is one thing that I really like when it comes to Planet Coaster 2. You don't have to set your dark ride or your park to nighttime to have an actual dark ride. But when it comes to the dark rides, I had to actually make it so that the colors looked well in darkness. So some things, when it comes to like color wise, right now look very bright or very colorful, but when the actual scene is done, the colors work a lot better. So these doors right now, they are very reddish. When it comes to the actual scene, when it's all finished, it's really just dark brown, just because how dark the scene is with the lighting and such. But yeah, also where the ride actually goes through, I'm not going to have any doors. Nowhere. So not even in the hotel parts of the ride, there's just not going to be any doors that open. just because when it comes to the moving platforms, that's just really janky. Because you can't set it so that the moving platform, like, it moves and then stays there for like a couple of seconds. So you have to make it so that it basically just sort of trembles in place and then moves back really fast. So we just won't have any doors, because I just don't want to go through the trauma of trying to make those doors work. But anyway, now we're just in the part where I'm going to be making a lot of windows, because as I said, as I was building the scene of the station, I just wanted to run, because I was just like, I don't want to build furniture. So I just ran from that scene and just started building the facade of the hotel. Now the hotel is in the end going to look obviously dilapidated. It's obviously going to look almost completely abandoned. Like, there's the hotel manager and the maid, and I think those are the only people actually still working there, or at least characters. So I'm obviously going to make the hotel look dilapidated, almost abandoned. I'm not here for like, oh, it's really pretty on the outside, but completely haunted on the inside. No. If it's haunted, I don't think the guests can hold up like a pair of scissors to like cut down on all of the weeds, or hold up like a paintbrush to paint over all of the cracks in the walls and such. No, this hotel is obviously going to look run down, dilapidated, and abandoned. However, to do that, my technique is to first build it very pristine. So it's going to look very pretty at the end of this video. When the entire ride is finished, that's when I'm going to go back into the facade and just ruin it. Like, just straight up destroy stuff, which is just going to be fun. But yeah, that's probably just going to be like at the very end, when the rest of the ride is completely finished. And then I'm going to go back into the facade of the hotel and just destroy it. So it's going to look very pretty for probably like 5 more episodes. I don't know how fast I'm going to be building this dark ride. It's probably one of the reasons why there's not a lot of dark rides. Like, even with Planet Coaster 1, I mean, with Planet Coaster 1, because of the time span, there is a lot of dark rides now, but even then, like, if you compare the amount of coasters to dark rides, there's still like probably 10 times more coasters that you would find online on YouTube than dark rides. With Planet Coaster 2, it's even more so. But yeah, I kind of understand that, because dark rides take a lot of time to build. Like, a huge amount of time. So even here, when it's sped up, this is like 3 weeks worth of building. Probably minus 1 week when I was running away and building facades adjacent to the hotel that are just not in any way related to the dark ride. It was just like, I can build these facades because, I mean, you know, if I only build the facade of the hotel, it's not going to look great in a video, because then you have all of these empty walls and just it becomes really obvious that the hotel is just a facade, because you can see just like the edges of like the roof that are supposed to, you know, blend into the other buildings, but there's no other buildings yet. So that was my excuse of like, oh yeah, I can work on the facades of all the other buildings, because then it looks more cohesive, it looks more immersive. I was definitely not just trying to run away from building furniture. This might also be another reason why I prefer or really liked setting the dark rides as in going into the catacombs, because catacombs don't have furniture. I can build greys though, and I have tried to build skeletons. It works surprisingly well, like building a skeleton while also having just like the picture of a skull, like an actual human skull on your second monitor. And just being like, I need to have that shape there, that shape there, that shape there. Oh, there needs to be a hole there. It was very morbid, but it was also just complete hyper-focus mode. I was just like, ooh, that, ooh, that, ooh, that, ooh, that. It's kind of like the lizard. Like, if anyone has been on TikTok lately, there's just the lizard. and it just occupied my brain forever now. It's just the lizard pushing a button which says lizard. And it's just not left my brain ever since I first saw it. And some people are saying like, oh yeah, this is great for the people with ADHD. I did want more confirmation that I might have that. But just lizard. Anyways, when it comes to the facades, it's actually a double wall. Because if I just made the facade and had like the windows looking out onto the actual rest of the park, it breaks the immersion. Because then like the story is set of like you as a guest are seeking shelter from like a storm. And then if it's like bright sunny outside, then that effect or like that part of the story is just completely just broken because you're just looking out at like a sunny sky and such. So I actually had to make the walls double. So there's a gap in between the outer wall and the inner wall. And the inner wall, that's completely set to look like it's A, nighttime, B, that there's a storm. So I had like thunder effects going, which was surprisingly easy to set up. I just had to look for like the right thunder sound because it needs to sound like you're inside, which not a lot of thunder sounds are like that. So I had to look that up and spent some time looking up. I also like the entire soundtrack, looking that up. It was fun. Now the only problem is whenever I'm building, I want to play all of the music that I've looked up for this ride, and I just sort of go into a trance and I just don't build. I'm just sitting there behind my desk looking at this ride and just vibing to this music. Just not doing anything at all. Just vibing. So yeah. Anyway, so of course this facade has a tower because of course it does. It's me. I'm going to build a tower. It adds also a little bit of like a nice dimension to the actual building. Like it's not just a flat facade. So that's the reason. I also just like building towers. But yeah, when it came to the actual facades and such, I actually had to spend quite some time looking up like what facade would work well. And like the main star of the attraction is the lady in white, which is obviously like clothing wise is set in the 1700s. But the inspiration for the facade is like a building set built in like the late 1800s. But it's still in that style that you would see for French chateaus and such. Did I say chateau right? I don't think I did. But I'm also beyond the point of caring about the pronunciation, so we're just going to move on. But yeah, I just had a lot of fun building like the balcony and everything. And also just like all of the ways that I can imagine just wrecking this place. Because that was the main thing. I needed to have a facade that looks pretty, but could also still look impressive, completely ruined, with like all of the windows boarded up, all of the cracks and ivy and weeds and everything, that it could still look impressive. Because that's one of the main things when it comes to this dark ride, because it's set in like just a city street. It's going to, of course, be the odd one out, because all of the other facades are pretty and such, and then this one is obviously dilapidated. So it's going to stand out, but I want it to be that you can imagine it just very easily blending in with the rest. So it needed to be the same style, it needed to basically be a facade where you can imagine how it would have looked like in its heyday, when it was just booming with business and everything. Because the storyline of the ride, or at least the hotel, is that like at one point this was a very like great hotel. Like it was the hotel where you would want to be seen. Like if you are anyone in society, you wanted to stay here if you were in Mythos. But then the hotel became haunted. Then the lady in white started appearing, and all of like the ghost things that happen with ghosts start happening. Like people would have not nightmares. I think that's actually later. Because the ride is named Phantom. And the lady in white is a ghost. So, yeah, I like rides to have a twist. I also like it when I can make very easy names for them. So, like, Phantom. Forgot the name of the coaster because I have the memory of a goldfish. But yeah, the ride is named Phantom, which is going to be a big thing. But I'm not going to explain that, because that's just going to, be something for a later date. I'm not going to spoil the ride now. But yeah, so basically, a lot of ghost stuff started happening, the cold and hot chills, people seeing the lady in white, just wandering or floating along the balconies or the inner balconies, because there's a balcony outside, but there's also balconies in the station, and just seeing her. And yes, because I like tragic stories and like just plain old gut-wrenching stories, she is of course crying the entire time, looking for something. And my first thought was like, oh yeah, French Revolution, she got her head chopped off, maybe her lovers or husbands, or I don't know. Basically, her lover's head was also chopped off and she can't find him because here's a nice little bonus thing of information for you guys. Everybody who got their head chopped off in the French Revolution, I think they were all just thrown down in mass graves. So I think we found like Marie Antoinette's and King Louis's skeletons and such, but most of them were just at first thrown in mass graves and then were later sort of rediscovered. I am always questioning though that like the bodies or the skeletons that we have of Marie Antoinette and Louis, are they actually them? Because I think they were thrown in a mass grave, and I don't know if they were thrown in a mass grave in coffins or just like thrown in there just bam. That's just something that I'm always curious about. But anyway, so that was the first storyline that I went with, of like the lady in white is looking for like her husband or lover or something. And then I was like, no, we're going to make it even more tragic, because there's other things that really like to cry and that I can have in the background. So yes, she's not looking for her husband anymore. She's looking for her baby that you can hear crying throughout the entire ride. And like sometimes it gets closer. You can see like the bassinet, I think it's called, or like the, what is it called? Like it's, the bassinet is I think for toddlers, and then you have the smaller one which is for babies. But like you can see that at points in the ride, and then it just gets pulled away as the lady goes after it. Yeah, I really just like sad stories. So yeah, you're going to hear a baby cry throughout this entire ride, because to me that's more sad. Because baby. Or you might find it really annoying, which is also your thing. So, like if you want it to be really annoying, that could also be a thing. But anyway, so yeah, so the entire ride is just you start off going into the hotel. Of course, lady in white at one point becomes visible. I actually want it so that you can potentially see her in both the station and the queue, just to really set it up already. And then you get escorted to your room by the maid, and you see the lady in white again. You hear the baby cry. I actually made, like, I had to look up French paintings, which, thank God, the Louvre has, like, a database of all of their paintings. But I had to look up, like, a lady from, like, 1700s-ish with a baby in the portrait. Yeah. And then I had to, through Photoshop magic, make the baby disappear. it worked. It's a little bit janky, but it worked. It had like that automatic fill too, like you circle the baby in this case, and then like fill it with like, oh no, fabric or something. The monstrosities that Photoshop created are worse than anything I can imagine, and I'm not going to show any of it. In the end, I just, the baby disappears, and then you start hearing the lady cry. And then you see her everywhere, throughout the entire ride. There's more twists and turns to it, but that's like the premise of the ride starting it. So yeah, I had fun with that. Also, like, I had to look up like all of the music and such. I also had to look up all of the sound effects. And my sound effects, like the what you have downloaded tab, sounds absolutely horrific. Because it's just a lot of lady crying sounds. And then there's a baby crying sound. And then there's like other sounds that make it sound even worse, but I can't get into it because it would spoil parts of the story. But yeah, I feel like I'm on some kind of watch list now, because who would need so many cries? This Dark Ride does, and now I feel like, I mean, there's like the joke of like, oh yeah, everybody has like a secret agent that's spying on them. I think I will get an invoice of that secret agent for like therapy sessions after, well, not even after this ride. Let's be real. I probably already traumatized them. Like they are in like one of those padded rooms with like the straitjacket on, just like sort of trembling. That's probably the fate of if I ever had like a secret agent attached to me, just looking up everything I searched for. Yeah. Have fun with that. I'm not paying the bills for the mental asylum. Which would actually also have been a really cool ride concept for dark rides. You know, because a lot of mental asylums from back then are right now very haunted, because it wasn't really a mental asylum, it was basically just a torture place where people tortured those with mental disabilities and everything, and if you really get into the history of it, it's really sad. Yeah, I really like history. I really like historical like clothes and such, not making them myself, but just looking at them and such. But I'm also so very, very happy that we're not living in those times anymore. Because, I mean, if you had any kind of like mental affliction, disability or such, you would just be straight up tortured. Or be seen as possessed by the devil or something. So yeah, so happy that we don't live in those times anymore, like, really happy. Anyways, back to the actual build. So, yeah, I was building this entire thing and just, I think I didn't record any more of like the indoor part, just because furniture. Like, I think by this point, you know, how people are scared of spiders and snakes and such, I actually find those quite adorable. You can literally just probably show up to me with a dresser or a table and I will freak the fuck out. Or at least, like, have a dresser or table and have, like, a sort of physical copy of Planet Coaster 2. I don't know if there are actual physical copies of Planet Coaster 2. But just, like, show that to me and I will have a full-on panic attack. I can build everything else, but for some reason, furniture scares the hell out of me. Or at least, like, furniture that's supposed to look like furniture. Like, when it came to the souvenir shop, I had no problem building, like, the shop stands and such, but or shop stands, no, it's not shop stands, what is it called, the tables and such, the display stuff, display cabinets, something, like, I had no problem doing that, but like, it asked me to build a table or a dresser or a bookcase, yeah, no, Just no. Just straight up nope. Now that I think about it, the bookcase in the coaster was also one of the last things I built. So I just have a thing against furniture. But yeah, now I'm building the entrance doors to the actual hotel, which are a lot grander than I thought they would be, because when I imagined it, it's like, oh yeah, when you're going to this dark ride, it's set in a hotel, you're not entering through the main doors, because the main part of the hotel is haunted, but then they have like the side building that's not haunted, that's still operating as like a bar or something, because of course people don't want to sleep here anymore, so the owner or the hotel manager has to make money some other way, and people might still want to drink here. Probably not, but it's like the only way that he can get some money. So you're like, maybe you're entering this ride through like the stables, or what used to be the stables but is now kind of turned into a bar, but you can still see it's stables. Yeah, that went out of the window when I made this door. Because I just went full on, just like balls to the wall, just completely crazy with like how ornate this door is. Like, it's insane. But anyway, that's also going to be it for today's video. As I said, I didn't film any more of the inside because honestly it traumatized me. But anyways, I hope all of you will have a wonderful day. If you did, or if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more. Now I have to shut my crazy ass up, so have a wonderful day, guys. Bye bye.